But Burrow played with Jamar Chase at LSU, who looks like about as good a college receiver as you're going to get. Big, strong, athletic kid. So if you run Cincinnati and Joe Burrow is off an injury, and if you look at those scars, Bill, those are big boy scars. That was a real injury. Mm-hmm. Would you – I said the other day, I said, I think if I was a GM, I'd protect my butt here. I think I would getting Jamar Chase. But I feel like I can get – receivers everywhere. Would you go O-line or receiver? Because it just feels like these days you can get receivers in the second, third, and fourth round. What would you do there?
Well, you're in the fifth spot in the draft. So if you follow the book of Levy and Dungy, both coaches that I worked with, and they both believed the very same thing. When you're in the top 10, you should draft A, a quarterback, if he can win for you. B, a player who touches the ball and scores touchdowns, a running back, a wide receiver, a tight end if he's special. Finally, a defender who ends games, who sacks the quarterback. So if you don't have any of those, the next most important position is left tackle. So now do you have a bona fide left tackle who you can plug in and play and say, this guy is going to play for the next 10 years. But that's the last choice in that sort of pecking order, if you will.
Yeah.
So if you're convinced that there's a game-breaking receiver there, you're probably wisest to do that because this is a pretty good draft for offensive linemen and you can get them down below. I'll share another story with you. The great Whitey Duvall, who put together the great Marty Schottenheimer's Kansas City Chiefs teams, was an offensive line coach. We worked together in the NFL, and he was a crusty old guy, as most line coaches are. I sat with him at the combine the year that Mandarich and Barry Sanders were coming out.
Yeah.
And I said, Whitey, what would you do? Would you take Tony Mandarich or would you take Barry Sanders? He looked at me and said, have you lost your mind? I said, no, I'm just asking you the question. He said, Tony Mandarich is going to block one guy. Barry Sanders is going to make 11 guys miss.
That's great. That's great. I got to remember that one. I'm going to steal that one. That one's so good. That is really funny. All right. Give me a moment, because you are so methodical and you're so detailed. I talked to a general manager last night, and I said, are you excited? And he said, no, I'm anxious because I can't control anything. If I had the number one pick, I'd be having a party tonight. But I got, I'm deeper. Did you ever, what was your mental state before a draft as somebody as well thought out and planned as you, knowing you can't control 3 or 4 picks in front of you?
Well, you have to be ready to react. So when you're from, let's say, 15 or so on down, you absolutely have to be ready to react. You have to expect that something crazy is going to happen. You have to be able to react to it. You have to analyze it. You have to be on your toes. So there was not a lot of idle chatter. There was certainly no conjecture about this or that or the other thing. We were just looking at the board and waiting to see what would happen. And we knew that there were pivotal picks along the way that would affect us. So we were prepared to do something if something happened. Best story of all is the year Shane Colin came out. We traded down from 3 to 7. We were sure we were going to get him at 7. We were sitting in the draft room, and we find out that the Cleveland Browns have jumped over us to 5. And Ralph Wilson, our owner at the Buffalo Bills, was furious. He said to me, did you know anything about this? Did you know this was going to happen? I said, Mr. Wilson, I haven't a clue. I'm as astounded as you are. I hadn't heard a word about it. And I started to pace and pray. And as it turned out, Cleveland took Mike Junkin, I believe, and Shane Conlon was there for us. But we were caught flat-footed, and it will happen. And I learned a lesson from that. You can be caught flat-footed, and you probably will, but be prepared to react when it happens.
Oh, boy. Well, good news, Cleveland took the wrong guy. So that they moved over you. They took the wrong guy.
Mr. Wilson said to me, sometimes it's better to be lucky than good.
So inside football, look at these quarterback prospects. It does, Bill, and this is speculation, but it does look like we got 3 or 4 really special kids. And there is speculation, if you look at the board next year, it's not a great quarterback class. Now, did you ever look at it that way, that some years it was a great corner draft and you needed one, and next year wasn't? Did you look a year or two ahead in drafts?
Yeah, we did, but it didn't really make a big difference because somebody always crops up. Norm Pollan, who was my boss in Buffalo when I first got there, used to say somebody's got to play. So you recognize that there'll be players coming to the fore every year. Concentrate on the thing you're doing now. If you had a paucity in one draft, like there's a real paucity of defensive linemen in this draft, you can be sure the wheel will turn, and next year there will be more of them. That's a cycle that repeats itself.
So you have a history. You were great with your first 2 picks. You just hit them, and that, by the way, even guys like Pete Carroll have had struggles in the first round. You tell me, why did you have such great success in the first round? And by the way, you didn't always have great first-round picks. You were bottom of the first a lot. Why did you do so well with your first couple of picks?
Because we knew exactly what kind of player we were looking for. So there was a template that we followed religiously. We didn't deviate from it. The height, weight, the speed, the ability to play the position, the characteristics of the individual, we never varied on that. And as a result, you get a player who fits for your system and fits for your franchise, and he has a better chance of doing well in that circumstance.
Did you have a proudest draft moment that you look back and you're a humble guy, but you were proud of what you and your staff did?
Well, I think the Peyton Manning pick, because everybody has amnesia now, but you'll remember back then it was not a slam dunk that Peyton Manning was the #1 pick. Ryan Leaf was the favorite of many in the media and the cognoscente and what have you. So that one took a little doing, and in the end, we finally said we've got to go with our gut. Peyton Manning is the kind of person that we want on this football team, and we may be wrong on the athletic evaluation and all the rest of that, but the bottom line is he's the kind of person that we want, and so he'll succeed. And so that one's gratifying.
By the way, didn't the interview, it wasn't the game tape, wasn't the interview what sealed it for Peyton Manning for you?
Well, no, it didn't seal it, but you have 20 minutes at the combine to interview the player. He came in, sat down, took out a yellow legal pad and said, I have a few questions. Would you mind answering them? He said, no, not at all. Next thing we know, the horn blows. Beep, the interview's over. He said, well, thanks, guys. I really appreciate it. I hope you draft me. I'm anxious to come to Indianapolis, and good luck. He walked out of the room, and we said, holy mackerel, he interviewed us, not the other way around. Little did we know that would be the future.
It was. Well, so of all these quarterbacks out there, I've said it, Trevor Lawrence feels like more of a prodigy. The rest of them are really good prospects, and it's going to take coaching and where they land and a good GM. What do you make of Trey Lance, who's played one football game in about a year and a half, but boy, oh boy,